Mystery infection spans globe in a climate of secrecy. An article originally published 2019, April 7th. A fungus called Candida auris can be life-threatening to those with weakened immunity. Hit neonatal unit in Venezuela. Hit a hospital in Spain. Forced a well-known British medical center to shut down its ICU. It has roots in India, Pakistan, and South Africa. Recent cases in New York, New Jersey, and Illinois. CDC added it to the list of germs deemed an urgent threat. Took the life of a man at Mount Sinai after 90 days in the hospital. C. auris resisted any attempts to remove it from the faculty at Mount Sinai. Impervious to major antifungal medications, making it a new example of one of the world's most intractable health threats, the rise of drug-resistant infections. They have made the claim that overuse of antibiotics was reducing the effectiveness of drugs. World health leaders have pleaded for more restraint in prescribing antimicrobial drugs to combat bacteria and fungi. They are most lethal to people with immune or compromised immune systems, including newborns and the elderly, smokers, diabetics, and people with autoimmune disorders who take steroids that suppress the body's defenses. A study the British government funded projects that if policies are not put in place to slow the rise of drug resistance, 10 million people could die worldwide of such infections in 2050. Antifungals are also applied to prevent agricultural plants from rotting. Some scientists cite evidence that rampant use of fungicides on crop is contributing to the surge in drug-resistant fungi infecting humans. Problems grow. It is little understood by the public, in part because the very existence of resistant infections is often cloaked in secrecy. Hospitals and local governments are reluctant to disclose outbreaks for fear of being seen as infectious hubs. Even the CDC, under its agreement with the states, is not allowed to make public the location or name of hospitals involved in outbreaks. State governments have, in many cases, declined to publicly share information beyond acknowledging that they have had cases. More than 90% of C. auris infections are resistant to at least one drug, and 30% are resistant to two or more drugs, the CDC said. C. auris as, quote, the top threat, unquote, threat among resistant infections. It's pretty much, this is a quote, it's pretty much unbeatable and difficult to identify, unquote. Nearly half of patients who contract C. auris die within 90 days, according to the CDC. Hushed panic is playing out in hospitals around the world. Individual institutions in national, state, and local governments have been reluctant to publicize outbreaks of resistant infections, arguing there is no point in scaring patients, or prospective ones. Royal Burton, June 2016. It shuts down its ICU for 11 days, moving intensive care patients to another floor, again with no announcement. Later, research said there was eventually 72 cases, though some patients were only carriers, were not infected by the fungus. The issue remained little known internationally. Valencia, Spain, at the 992-bed hospital, unbeknown to the public or unaffected patients, 372 were colonized, had the germ on their body, but were not sick with it. 85 developed bloodstream infections. A paper in the journal Mycosis reported that 41% of the infected patients died within 30 days. A statement from the hospital said it was not necessarily C. auris that killed them. As with Royal Burton, the hospital in Spain did not make any public announcement. It still has not, out of concern about the public image of the hospital. Secrecy infuriates patient advocates who say have the right to know if there is an outbreak so they can decide whether or not to go to a hospital, particularly when dealing with a non-urgent matter like elective surgery. United States, 587 cases of people having contracted C. auris have been reported, concentrated with 309 in New York, 104 in New Jersey, 144 in Illinois, according to the CDC. The symptoms, fever, aches, and fatigue, are seemingly ordinary, but when a person gets infected, particularly someone already unhealthy, commonplace symptoms can be fatal. Earliest known cases in the United States involved a woman who arrived at a New York hospital on May 6, 2013. The germ has spread into long-term care facilities in Chicago. 50% of the residents at some nursing homes in Chicago have tested positive for C. auris, the CDC has reported. The fungus can grow on intravenous lines and ventilators. First time doctors encountered C. auris was in the ear of a woman in Japan in 2019. Genome sequencing showed that there were 4 distinctive versions of the fungus, found that the origin was not a single place, and there was not a single auris strain. India, Pakistan, Venezuela, South Africa, and Japan have been noted as different origins of 4 distinctive versions of the fungus. C. auris emerged as resistant pathogens from harmless environmental strains in 4 different places at the same time. Quote, somehow it made a jump almost seemingly simultaneously and seemed to spread, and it is drug resistant, which is really mind-boggling, unquote. I'll keep you up to date on what's going on. I do believe I had tried to talk to you about the possibilities of fungus becoming an issue with humans in the article I viewed with regards to the frog apocalypse. I did go over briefly the actress that recently died, Denise Duberry, died at age 63 after being hospitalized with a rare fungal infection. Unfortunately, the information on her has not been released on what kind of fungal infection, and I should say that there are several different kinds of infections that can be fatal. The importance of eating healthy, reducing the amount of sugar intake, and even watching the consumption of alcohol. They could all lead to fungal infections that could cause health issues. Rarely are they fatal, but in some cases they can be. Thanks for joining me on The Curve.